Hi gorgeous humans, welcome back to another episode. This is all about learning how to become not NPCs. We don't want to be NPCs. And for anyone that doesn't know what an NPC is, it just is an acronym that stands for non-player character. And it comes from the world of gaming, which I don't know anything about. So forgive me if my description is not 100% accurate. But these are the characters in the game where they are just there. And they're kind of just like there doing their thing. They have like a set role. And you can go and like minimally interact with them. Sometimes they will give you information that you need, sometimes not. And that's it. They're not a main character in the game. They are not important really whatsoever to the plot or the development of the game or any of those things. They're just kind of filling the place, playing the role to make the world seem, real and interesting, but with no depth, with no meaning, with none of those things. And this is exactly what we don't want to be in our life, but that unfortunately is exactly how modern life is set up, how modern society is set up. And I know we've all been there before. I also lived this life. I also was an NPC at different moments in my life. And the way that I can describe that looking back is just like when we are in this just pure survival mode where we're just trying to make ends meet, we are just doing our job that is our 9 to 5 and we just go to work. We then spend most of our time outside of work, just too tired to do anything else, too exhausted, or mainly really just spending our time soothing ourselves in whatever we all have different favorite ways of doing that. It could be scrolling, it could be binge watching TV shows, it could be binge eating, it could be drinking alcohol, could be doing drugs, it could be many different things that we use to soothe ourselves with. And in this act of soothing actually are numbing and actually just kind of sedating ourselves. And then it just makes us easier to control, easier to just stay in that loop forever until we retire or until we die. Not really questioning anything, not really feeling like we have enough energy to change anything. And it's a horrible place to be, and it might feel triggering to have it described as being an NPC. I completely understand that. I'm speaking from a place of having been there myself in many different parts of my life. But the reason that I describe it as being NPC is just that nothing really is going on. We're doing the things, like in the life, we're doing life, but nothing much is happening below the surface. There's not that much meaning. There's not that much fulfillment. There's not that much novelty. There's not that much learning. There's not that much evolving happening. And a lot of these things happen kind of earlier in our lives when we're in our teens, of course, like when we're children. When we are in uni, we're learning a lot. When we get out of uni and we get a job, we're learning a lot. We're trying really hard. We are on the career path. We're putting a lot of energy and effort into growing and learning and evolving, normally the set kind of skills that we need for the job that we have. And then we kind of get comfortable there and that's it. And we can look back on like our parents and our grandparents and other generations, and that was really it, and then you would be in that job and just doing that. And maybe you would like climb the corporate ladder. Maybe you would, get higher responsibilities and do different things. And maybe you would like do a little side tangent to another job at some moment. But then more or less, most of the time we just do the things. We just go through the motions of the thing. And that's exactly what it is to be an NPC. You're just a non-player character. You're in the game, but just going through the motions of the game. You're just filling the place. You're the placeholder for that thing in that moment. And then we kind of just get so numb and so out of the habit of growing and out of the habit of evolving that all the rest of our life kind of stagnates around us. And maybe we aren't that connected to our partners. We're not that connected to our children. We're not that connected to the rest of our family. Our social life suffers because we don't have that much time or energy to put into socializing. Our passion life just completely withers because we have no energy or time or money to dedicate anything to kind of igniting passion in us, to feeding that passion within us. Our creativity, of course, goes down the tube. Our ability to feel joy in life goes down the tube. Our aliveness goes down the tube because There is no time, there is no energy, and we're just going through the motions of life. And we're busy, we're multitasking, we're trying to get everything done. We're really just staying afloat most of the time. We're not that happy, we're not that peaceful, we're not that calm, we're not that much having a good time in our lives, but we're just trying to get through. And if you feel like that's you, like, I'm sending you the biggest hug, because it's such an awful place to be in. It's a really challenging place to be in. And if we want to get out of this thing of being a non-player character, of being just an NPC in life, what we're actually going to have to do is something radically different than what we normally do, because the NPC just has their role and they do their role, and you can go up and like interact with them maybe a little bit, and they have a very predictable set of responses that they're programmed to give. Maybe they give a few, maybe they don't give any, maybe they're just standing there like completely mute. Maybe they give you a little bit of information for the next things in the game. But they have a very, very, very predictable role and a very predictable set of responses that they have. And for the most part in our adult lives, we are also like that, you know. Our lives follow a very predictable pattern day to day. We get up at the same time, we quickly eat something, we go and sit in traffic, maybe we listen to the news or maybe we listen to the radio. Then we're at work, we just do our normal work things, we see the same people at work. After work, we drive home, it's traffic. Then we get home, then we have to like put the kids to bed and like then have, you know, make a meal, and then just be so exhausted that we just kind of like sit in the same lounge room as our partner, but we're both just scrolling on our phones. And then at some moment it's time to go to bed, and you just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And it will look slightly different for everyone, like based on what your life is, based on what your family is, but it's very predictable. You will talk about predictable things in that day. You will have conversations with predictable people. There are very predictable ways that you will go to and from work. There are very predictable things that you will eat. There are very predictable ways that you will feel throughout the day that are almost just like set, and you just go through them every day. You're just like following the roller coaster. And the grooves are so well worn that it just happens more or less automatically. So to be able to break out of NPC land, you have to start doing unpredictable things. You have to start actually being an interesting person in your life, actually being somebody of substance, being somebody of depth, being somebody interesting, being somebody that does unfamiliar, unpredictable things, that actually starts to develop different parts of themselves that were just withering away or stagnating or had just never, ever been looked at before. And this is a thing that I unfortunately wasted a lot of time of my youth, like in this loophole of thinking that somehow I could change aspects of my life without actually changing myself, or without actually doing anything different in my life, any of those two things, because they each both feed into the other. And so I thought somehow I could have all of these like big breakthroughs in my life, but not ever actually having to evolve my own character and my own self, and not ever having to actually change any of the habits or very predictable patterns of feeling, of behaving that I had in my life. There is no loophole. There is a fast track, which is changing one or both of those things. But there are no loopholes around that, unfortunately. Unless there's like some big catastrophe that happens in your life that forces you to do one of those two things, which that does sometimes happen, but you never wanted to get to that point. You want to really like be your own catalyst before life has to be a catalyst for you. So what does that actually practically look like? It looks like just being a different version of yourself, which I know you're thinking like, oh yeah, that's easy for you to sit there and say that, like easier said than done. But it means acting in unpredictable ways than what you normally act. So maybe you just have some specific tendency, and we all have tendencies that we fall into that are not that nice. You know, I tend to be impatient. I tend to be relatively intolerant, I would say. I spend a lot of mental energy thinking about things ahead of time, planning things ahead of time for myself and for other people. And when other people don't put that same level of consideration, I don't like that. That's my own thing, you know, my own thing to deal with. It's my own like baggage from my past. So we all have these traits, you know, of like irritation towards certain things. We all have our own little triggers that niggle away at us. We all have our predictable way of behaving in a certain situation. We all have a predictable way of behaving when somebody cuts us off in traffic. We all have a particular way of behaving when, your coat gets caught on the door handle and it pulls you back. We all have a predictable way of behaving when your spouse calls you, or any of these things. We're very predictable creatures. We really love to tread the same path over and over again. In fact, our brain will exert an enormous amount of energy to keep us on that track. And it will cost you an enormous amount of energy to get off that track. And the thing is, in the moment where you could do something different, this is the thing, because we think about this ahead of time and we plan this out. And we're like, okay, this is how I'm going to behave differently. I'm going to be so much more open-minded, and I'm going to be much more kind, and I'm going to be much more patient. And you think about these things and you think how nice that will be. And then we think that we're going to actually just easily be able to do that when the circumstance arises, when the client is half an hour late for the meeting, again for the third time in the row. We think we're going to manage that in a very nice, calm, grounded way with boundaries. But actually what happens is we just behave how we always have behaved, and we create a scene and we cause problems or whatever. So the thing is, in the moment where you have the opportunity to do something different, you are going to feel so justified in repeating the same thing. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you immediately get this surge of why? I'm already late to work. Already, I spilled my coffee this morning, things are not going that well, blah, 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 blah. And someone cuts you off. And of course you are going to feel of course you deserve to be angry in that moment. Of course you deserve to express and beep your horn and stick up your middle finger and yell at them and la la la. You are going to feel that's exactly what you should do. And you, of course, are completely justified in doing that thing. Your mind will be telling you all of those things. And that's just really what that is your very well-conditioned brain just trying to get you to do the thing that you normally do, because that keeps you in the predictable loop. Those are the moments where you get to break the thing of being an NPC. And these don't just have to be bad moments where we would normally react badly and we can replace those with something else. Although that is ultimately the end goal, it is much more difficult than it sounds. I have found it to be much more difficult than it should be in my mind. And so sometimes it's easier to start the other way and actually just behave in unpredictable ways that are pleasant and good and don't necessarily require us to override a negative impulse immediately. And really, I love to use this imagery of somebody in a game, a character in a game that you can interact with. And if you want to be actually a real character, a main character to use the modern mainstream psycho lingo, if you want to have this main character energy and be a main character, you're going to have to be a main character. You're going to have to actually be interesting. You're going to actually have a personality. You're actually going to have passions and interests and life force. You're going to have a lot of energy. You're going to have to be just a relevant person in life to actually be a main character. And what that means is that you exert some sort of impact in your life. The people that come in contact with you leave your presence hopefully feeling much more expanded than they did beforehand, because of the way that you make them feel, because of the presence that you bring them, because of the things that you talk about, because of the ways that you shed light on things that they haven't understood before, because of the way that you transform them by your presence. You're going to want to make an impact in this world because you're so passionate about the things that you care about that you can't help but spread that joy and enthusiasm to other people just because of your state of being. You can't help but improve people's lives because you are enjoying your own life so much, because you are a main character in your own life, because you've made your life something beautiful, that then you have an abundance of this goodwill that you get to share with other people. Maybe you get to, buy a coffee for a random stranger. Maybe you get to give a genuine compliment to the guy that makes your coffee and actually have a beautiful conversation with somebody that you've always seen, but you never bothered to give them the time of day. Maybe you get to just have a long conversation with an elderly neighbor that hasn't spoken to anyone for a whole week. You get to actually genuinely impact people's lives You get to have enough energy to think about other people ahead of time and think like, what would my partner love for me to come home with tonight? Just as a gesture of like showing them that I care about them. And that would look different for everybody. Maybe for some people, their partner would love nothing more than for you to like buy them a bunch of flowers on the way home. Maybe some partners would love for you to just have written them a letter in your lunch break, just, saying how you genuinely feel, telling them something that you love about them. Maybe your partner would love for you to make like them a special Spotify playlist that has all of your favorite memories in it. Something that breaks you out of the norm of these things. Like how are you normally when you get home and your kids want to play with you, but you're tired? And you just like kind of brush them off and you quickly get bedtime done. What if you were to actually spend some time before getting home, like amping yourself up, like putting some songs on in the car that get you in like a really good mood so that you can get some energy happening. And when you get home, you can actually like greet them with a big hug and like pick them up and spin them around and, be interested in their day and play a game with them maybe, or like take them out for a walk in the park before dinner. Anything that it is actually going to just interrupt your normal patterns of life. Interrupt this like well-worn rut of just your character in the game that does the normal everyday things. And it happens very, very slowly. You really have to trust the process of these things, but they add up very, 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 very quickly into a force that is much bigger than you and can really transform your life completely. And then sometimes you can do big leaps of NPC behavior, like booking a one-way flight somewhere, just quitting your job and like moving somewhere else. And, like ending a relationship that really is not taking either of you anywhere. Actually taking a risk, quitting your job and going back to studies, the thing that you're actually passionate about and not just the thing that is the big sunk cost fallacy in your life. So there's so many different ways of doing this, like on the micro level and also on the macro level. They both work. They both really like contribute towards you breaking out of NPC land. And really to get full potential out of this, you want to know what kind of character you actually want to become. And for most games, I guess like the main character is the hero. He's on the hero's journey. He's on the hero's quest. And we all know this story. We all know like this very, very, very familiar storytelling pattern of the hero's journey, the hero's quest. And we all really want to go on our own journey of that. And really, a lot of us didn't get to do this because our society is so well set up to keep us NPCs, because it keeps the system going, keeps everything running smoothly. It keeps everybody so tired and exhausted that they aren't that interested and don't have the energy to break out of NPC land anyway. And because there's just such a familiar life path that we've had all of our life, and I think this is really changing now, but we went to school, after school we went to uni, after uni maybe we did an internship or we got a job, and then we just did the job, we climbed the ladder, we bought the house, we found the partner, maybe we had the kids. Everything was in this very familiar pattern. But there was never really this thing of like the hero's quest of like, the hero always leaves the lands. They always go out to discover themselves. They always go far, far away on a journey full of like perils and adventures and full of like pitfalls and full of like being extremely humbled by life and then full of the most magical, extraordinary experiences. And they always meet so many people along the way. They make friends along the way. They meet guides along the way. They meet people that are much older and wiser than them that they learn from. They meet people that they think are guides but actually deceive them and rob them. And they learn the hard way what it means to be able to read people, what it means to be able to trust people, what it means to navigate different people on this journey, navigate ulterior motives. And they go to different places. They collect things along the way. They collect different things and put them in their inventory if you're in the game land. And they have to know when to use these different things at different moments. And of course, they can be physical things, but more often than not, they're qualities that we have to, tap into and embody and learn and discover in ourselves and refine so that we can use them, these different qualities in different moments. And then they have times where they spend a lot of time in one land and learn a lot of things there. And then at some moment they maybe come back home. And then they can see how much they've changed, because home has never changed that much. Every time I've left home and come back, every time I've left Melbourne and come back, I'm always just astounded by how much it hasn't changed. People haven't changed. The places haven't changed. Everyone's still just doing the same old thing. I feel like I've gone through like 10 lifetimes. And home is always like a measuring stick for your own growth. And you will go and come back and go and come back and see how much you've changed, because you can see how much home hasn't really changed that much. And maybe you leave again. Maybe you go off on a different quest. Maybe you go to explore different things. And because so many of us got just in this cycle of like the normal life path, we didn't necessarily get to do those things when we were young, because we thought that that's what we wanted, because we didn't even think about it. We were just carried along by that tidal wave of normal life. And what I love so much is seeing, and in a lot of my clients' lives, this happens as we work together over time, they start to do these things now as like grown adults, sometimes in their 30s, sometimes in their 50s, sometimes in different stages of their life, where they've realized like, actually, maybe I do want to have my own hero's journey. Maybe I do want to like just pattern interrupt and like go and do this trip that I've always wanted to do that I've never done, or go and have that experience that I've always thought about doing but for some reason just never felt brave enough to, or go and actually take that big risk that I've always wanted to but just felt too scared. That's what we want to be able to do, to not just be NPCs. And really, like, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to break out of the status quo. It's terrifying to be different to all of the other people around you. It's terrifying to do something different than what you've always done. It's terrifying to book a one-way flight and go on your first solo travel trip. It is terrifying. I know exactly how it feels. I've been there 1,000 times myself. But the things that you get from that thing are life-changing and extraordinary, and will transform you and your life in ways that you cannot even fathom. Like, far, far, far amplified and beyond what you could ever imagine. So we really just want to not be NPCs. We never want to just be playing a character. And of course, for some moments in our life, it will look like we're just playing a character. It'll look like we're just going through the motions. But underneath the surface, we want to be people that have the mindset of growth, that have the mindset of evolution, that want to change, that want to evolve, that don't want to just stay stagnant. And maybe from the outside, your life might not look that different. Maybe you'll still have the same job. Maybe you'll still have the same partner, the same children, the same routines. But you can change the essence of your being and the way that you approach those things. You can change the dynamic of your relationship with your children, with your partner, with your role at your work, with your passions, the things that are meaningful to you. You have that power. You have that ability to change those things if you collect all of your scattered attention that's in a billion different places and learn how to bring it all together and focus it in one place. And this is the way of the dragon. This is the path of the dragon, because dragons are just latent potential, latent energy. They are coiled. They have extreme tensile strength in their spine. They are calm, but they are coiled. They are full of like dynamic power, just waiting to be expressed. Their energy is not wasted on 1 million different things. It's really stored within them in this complete powerhouse, reservoir of latent power within them. And that's the thing, the power is within. It's not out there in a million different places where we're looking for it, where we're trying to find it, where we're reading different things but never actually going inside of us. NPCs don't know themselves that well. They don't question things. They just do what they're told. They do exactly what they've been programmed to do. And life is far too precious to do that. Like maybe we have been, like maybe you're listening to this episode and just being like, oh my God, like that's been my whole life. Like I've just been living in this program all of these years. Like what do I even do? How do I even break free from this? What would even be the first step? The first step is to start going within yourself. Start discovering your own uniqueness, your own power, your own gifts, your own abilities, your own ability to generate your own energy, your own ability to enjoy your life, to be lit up by the things that you care about, to make sure that you have enough energy to do those things. Don't go by other people's programming. Don't just do what you've been told to do your whole life. Don't just go with the status quo because, You're buying into the panic of all of the people around you, and the rules of all of the people around you, and the expectations of all of the people around you, because that's so boring. It's so dull to get caught up in those things. And I know that they are very magnetic and influential. This is a huge part of the work I do with my clients, actually, is just reminding them to stay on track, because when you finally are brave enough to get help, if you know that you've tried to do this on your own before and you haven't been successful, you maybe need a mentor, you need a guide, or somebody that can help you, a friend that can help you. And then so much of the work that I do is then when people are actually feeling supported enough and brave enough to make these changes and start making changes, that's actually only the first step on the journey, because everyone around you is going to be reminding you of, hold on a second, that's risky. Why are you doing that thing? Like, why are you quitting your stable job? Why are you booking a flight somewhere when, you've got bills to pay? There are things to do. You've got responsibilities. There's normal life things to do. And we just have to get so good at doing all of the mental jujitsu possible, all of the emotional jujitsu, to dodge out of the way of other people's projections and other people's smallness and other people's rules and other people's expectations, because they don't have any place in the path that you're going. And most of my work is just reminding people of this, and just constantly reminding people, like, no, do not let other people stress you. Don't let other people make you panic. Don't let other people project their own fear onto you. You've done so much work to get out of this place. Like, don't let other people pull you back down there. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. The NPCs want you to stay an NPC, because then they have to never confront their own NPC-ness. When NPCs see people transforming and actually doing something different, it rocks the boat, And you best believe you're going to be the one that's made to be wrong and projected onto. And you have to be strong enough to deal with that. You have to have support in place to be able to, handle other people's projections on you. You have to have support in place to be able to be okay doing things your own way, even if no one around you is doing it that way. That's what it means to not be an NPC. It's what it's going to cost you to not be an NPC. But the prize at the end of this is something extraordinary. And what happens is that those same NPCs will look at you and say, wow, she's so lucky. She just got so lucky. Wow, must be nice to be her. That's so nice. She's so lucky. And you feel these things, you understand these things, and you think to yourself, like, this was never luck. This was me working my ass off. This was me struggling. This was me going through the absolute trenches of my shadows and my demons and my worst parts of myself and my worst traumas and my worst triggers, and sitting with these things and transforming these things and taking risks and failing so many times, and meeting the right people and meeting the wrong people and going on this path and that path and learning this thing and that thing and evolving myself. And yeah, it looks like luck when you're there at the end of the journey, when you're the hero. But you forget all of those stages along the way. People don't know all of those stages along the way. Only we know them in our heart of hearts. So the cost is very high, but the prize is unfathomable. And you can't get it any other way. These things don't fall into your lap. And if they did fall into your lap, you wouldn't appreciate them anyway. The hero is the hero at the end of the journey because he went through all of those things. She went through all of these things. She went through the flames and the forge and the fire again and again and again. And she got refined every single time. And she failed and she got back up again. And she failed and she got back up again. And she kept going and she kept going and she kept going. And even when the pull to go back to being an NPC was strong, even when the desire to go back to an NPC was strong, she still didn't let herself slide back there. And that's how you become the dragon. That's how you live a life that other people look at and think, holy shit, like, who is this person? How did they get this life? How are they like this? How do they have this energy? How do they move through their life in this way? How are they so creative? How are they so powerful? How are they so strong in themselves? How are they so confident? This is how you break out of NPC land and you become your own hero, your own warrior, your own extraordinary person. And really, if you need support, get support. It is the fast track in every imaginable way. This is the thing that I absolutely love doing with my clients. This is my life passion, my big life passion, because I've done it so many times myself and I love guiding other people through it. If you need help with this, if you don't know how to break out of NPC land, but you desperately want to, please send me a message. I love you guys so much.